What if everything we were told about Caitlin Clark's condition wasn't the full story? Because right now, a growing number of Indiana Fever fans are asking one question that just won't go away. What exactly is happening behind the scenes with Caitlin Clark? And more importantly, why does it suddenly feel like the story we're getting from the Fever organization isn't matching what fans are actually seeing with their own eyes? Just days ago, the messaging seemed simple. Everything was supposedly fine. Caitlin Clark was okay. No major concerns, no panic. Just normal management, normal recovery, normal basketball decisions. But then something happened that completely changed the conversation. And now fans are not buying it anymore. Because when you tell people one thing, but the camera shows something totally different, people start connecting dots. And let's be honest for a second, this isn't just any rookie player we're talking about. This is Caitlin Clark, the biggest draw in women's basketball. The player filling arenas, breaking ratings records, moving ticket sales, and carrying expectations that honestly no rookie should ever have to carry. So when something feels off with Caitlin Clark, people notice. Fast and lately, a lot of things have felt off. Fans first started raising eyebrows when Clark didn't look like herself. The explosiveness didn't feel the same. The rhythm looked different. Certain movements looked uncomfortable. Even moments that normally felt automatic for her suddenly looked hesitant. Now look, every athlete has bad games. Every star goes through stretches where timing feels weird. Nobody's saying a single performance means disaster. But this wasn't just about stats. Fans were watching body language, the reactions after certain plays, the way she moved after contact, the moments where she looked frustrated, not just mentally, but physically. And suddenly, people started asking the question no organization ever wants fans asking, is she actually healthy? Because here's where things started getting messy. The Fever publicly pushed the idea that everything was under control. No major concerns. No real alarm bells. Business as usual. But then came decisions that made people stop and say, wait a minute. Minutes looked different. Certain situations felt strangely cautious. There were moments where Clark looked uncomfortable. Moments where cameras caught reactions fans immediately clipped and spread online. Social media exploded with slow-motion clips, freeze frames, and theories. And when fans started comparing what they were hearing versus what they were watching, that's when the trust issues started. Because sports fans can't accept bad news. What they hate is feeling like they're not getting the truth. And suddenly, the Fever found themselves in a very uncomfortable situation. Fans began asking, if everything is fine, then why does Caitlin Clark not look fine? If she's healthy, why does she seem limited? If there's nothing serious, why does this feel so different? And the more questions people asked, the louder the conversation got. You could actually feel the frustration building online. Some fans were furious, others were worried, and some were flat out accusing the organization of trying to protect a narrative. Because let's not pretend the stakes here are small. The Indiana Fever have built enormous momentum around Caitlin Clark. The entire WNBA has benefited from what she brings to the league: television numbers, merchandise, attendance, national attention. Everything changes when Caitlin Clark plays. So naturally, some fans started wondering if there was pressure to downplay concerns. Not because anyone necessarily wanted to deceive people, but because when a superstar becomes this valuable, organizations sometimes try to control panic. And that's where this story starts getting uncomfortable. Because fans remember. They remember every time sports teams said a player was fine. Only 4 weeks later, to discover things were far more serious than anyone admitted. They remember phrases like minor discomfort, day-to-day precautionary, only for the truth to eventually come out. So when Fever fans started noticing things that didn't add up, skepticism exploded almost instantly. And honestly, can understand why. Because Caitlin Clark doesn't just matter to Indiana. She matters to the entire league. Every game she misses changes headlines. Every setback becomes national news. Every unusual moment gets analyzed from every angle. That's the reality of being this level of star. And maybe that's exactly why fans are reacting so strongly right now. Because for many people, this stopped being about basketball. This became about transparency. Something is bothering Caitlin Clark physically. Fans want honesty. Not vague statements. Not confusing messaging. Not situations where what we're seeing feels completely disconnected from what we're hearing. And here's the thing nobody really wants to say out loud. Sometimes athletes themselves try to play through things they shouldn't, especially competitors. Like Caitlin Clark, we're talking about someone who built her reputation on toughness. Someone who plays through pressure, criticism, expectations, physical contact, and chaos every single night. You really think a player wired like that is going to voluntarily slow down? Probably not. Competitors want to play. Competitors convince themselves they're okay. Competitors push through. And sometimes organizations let stars push longer than they should because everyone understands what's at stake. That's not accusation. That's sports reality. But if fans sense even a tiny disconnect between messaging and reality, the internet turns into detectives overnight. And wow, did that happen here. Clips started circulating. Fans zooming into movements. People comparing recent footage to earlier games. Even basketball analysts started carefully pointing out that Clark didn't quite look like herself physically. It's not dramatically different, just different enough for people to notice. And when enough people notice the same thing independently, the conversation gets impossible to ignore. Now suddenly, instead of talking about wins and losses, everyone's talking about health, about trust, about whether the Fever are truly being transparent, and perhaps, most importantly, about whether Caitlin Clark is being protected the way she should be. Because here's the scary truth nobody wants to admit. The Fever absolutely cannot afford to mishandle this. Not from a basketball perspective, not from a business perspective, and definitely not from a trust perspective. Because if fans ever start believing the organization prioritized short-term optics over Clark's long-term health, that backlash would be brutal, especially when expectations around this team are already sky high. Think about the pressure surrounding Indiana right now. You have the most hyped rookie in league history, national media watching every move, fans expecting immediate success, critics waiting for failure, and a superstar whose every movement gets dissected frame by frame online. That environment is chaos. And in chaos, communication matters more than ever. Which is exactly why some fans feel frustrated right now. Because uncertainty creates speculation. Speculation creates drama. And drama creates distrust. And whether fair or unfair. That's exactly where this situation seems headed. But here's where we need to be careful. There's a huge difference between asking questions and pretending we know facts we don't actually know. Right now, fans are reacting to what they believe they're seeing. Body language, performance shifts, visual moments. Organizational messaging that does not automatically prove anyone lied. But it absolutely explains why questions are exploding. Because perception matters. And right now, perception is becoming a real problem for Indiana. Especially when Caitlin Clark means so much to so many people. You don't get to be this visible without scrutiny. Every smile gets analyzed. Every bench moment gets clipped. Every interaction becomes content. That's just reality now. And if Clark looks uncomfortable for even 5 seconds, millions of people notice. which means the Fever are walking an incredibly thin line. If they say too little, fans panic. If they say too much, headlines explode. If they sound overly confident and Clark later misses time, trust gets damaged. It's a nearly impossible situation. But here's the biggest reason this story refuses to die. Fans care. That's really what this comes down to. People aren't obsessing over Caitlin Clark because they dislike her. They're obsessing because they're invested. Because for many fans, Clark represents something bigger: growth, momentum, energy around women's basketball that people have wanted for years. And when the face of that movement suddenly doesn't seem right physically, everyone gets nervous. Everyone starts asking questions. Everyone starts watching closer. So maybe the real issue here isn't whether Indiana intentionally misled anyone. Maybe the bigger problem is this: fans simply don't feel reassured. And until they do, this conversation probably isn't going anywhere. Because whether people want to admit it or not, one thing has become crystal clear. When it comes to Caitlin Clark, fans are watching everything. Every play, every expression, every decision, every explanation. And if anything feels even slightly off, the internet is going to notice. The real question now is simple. Will the Fever clear up the confusion before this turns into an even bigger controversy? Or will fans keep believing there's more to this story than anyone is saying?